Book 6, The Sixth Watch, by Sergei Lukyanko, translated by Andrew Bromfield. Harper Book, New York, London, Toronto, Sydney. This text is mandatory reading for the forces of light, the Night Watch. This text is mandatory reading for the forces of darkness, the Day Watch. The Sixth Watch. "15 years is a long stretch. In 15 years a man can be born, learn to walk, talk, and use a computer, learn to read, count, and use the toilet as well, and then, a lot later, learn to fight, and fall in and out of love. And sometimes, to round things off, he brings new people into the world or dispatches old ones into the darkness. Over the course of 15 years, spent in prisons for especially dangerous criminals, murderers pass through all the circles of hell and then go free, sometimes without an iota of darkness in their souls, sometimes without an iota of light. 15 years, even the most ordinary man radically changes his life several times. He leaves his family and starts a new one. He changes his job maybe 3 or 4 times. He makes a fortune and it's reduced to poverty. He visits the Congo where he smuggles diamonds, or settles down in a deserted little village in the Psychov region and starts breeding goats. He takes to drink, acquires a 2nd degree, becomes a Buddhist, starts taking drugs, learns to fly a plane, and goes to the Maidan in Kiev, where he gets a smack across the forehead with a truncheon, after which enters a monastery. Basically, a lot of things can happen in 15 years, if you're a man. But if you happen to be a 15-year-old girl, you know for absolute certain that nothing interesting has ever happened to you. Well, almost nothing. If anyone could have a heart-to-heart talk with Ola Yalkova, 5 years ago her mother could have done it, and 3 years ago her granny could have, but now no one could. She would have told that person 3 interesting things about herself. First, how much she hated the stupid sound of her own name, Ola Yalova. You couldn't make it up. Ola Yalova. When she was a kid, they teased her and called her Ola Yellow, like to twin girls in that ancient children's film, The Kingdom of Crooked Mirrors. But that wasn't too bad. After all, it was a good film, in 7 years old Ola's opinion. And she even looked a bit like those twins, Ola Yellow, so fine. But then a year at school, when she was 10, a certain classmate of hers, yeah, right, a certain classmate. It's great when at that age you're already bald, handsome, and top of the class, with rich parents who adore you, and your surname is Sokolov, from Sokol, meaning falcon. Well then, this certain classmate of hers decided to look up what other pupils' names meant on the internet. And then you discover that Yalova means nothing more than a cow with no calf, a barren cow, and so barren cow becomes your nickname from 10 to 13. Sometimes it's abbreviated to just cow, sometimes even to BC. The humiliation of it all and the tears that you cry make you start saying at home, reading books and guzzling tea with biscuits until your fatigue, until your figure really does look like a cow's. And this, the hardcover, signed by Nonetheless. To Mia, my Mia, to quote John Edgeread, the location, Blackberg, it makes you think of coconut frosted cookies, maybe drugs, a respectable life. You think subway station, suburb. Probably nothing else comes to mind. People must live there, just like they do in other places. That was why it was built, after all, so that people would have somewhere to live. It was not a place that developed organically, of course. Here everything was careful, planned from the oust. And people moved into what had been built for them, earth-colored concrete buildings scattered about in green fields. When the story begins, Blackberg, the suburb, had been in existence for 30 years. One could imagine that it had fostered a pioneer spirit. The Mayflower, an unknown land, yes, one can imagine all those empty buildings waiting for their occupants. And here they come, marching over the Tranberg Bridge with sunshine and the future in their eyes. The year is 1952. Mothers are carrying their little ones in their arms or pushing them in palms, holding them by the hand. Fathers are not carrying picks and shovels, but kitchen appliances and functional furniture. There they are probably signing something. The International, perhaps. Or We Come Unto Jerusalem, depending on their predilection. It's big, it's new, it's modern. They were definitely singing something. But that was what it was. That was the way it was. They came on the subway or in cars, moving vans. One by one, filtered into the finished apartments with their things, sorted their possessions into the measured cubbies and shelves, placed the furniture in formation on the cork floor, bought new things to fill the gaps. When they were done, they lifted their eyes and gazed out unto this land that had been given unto them, walked out of their doors and found that all the land had been claimed. Might as well adjust oneself to how things were. There was a town centre. There was a spacious playgrounds allotted to children, large green spaces around the corner. There were many pedestrian-only walking paths. A good place. That's what people said to each other over the kitchen table a month or so after they had moved in. It's a good place we've come to. One thing was missing, a past. At school, the children didn't get to do any special projects about Blackberg's history because there wasn't one. That is to say, there was something about an old mill, a tobacco king, some strange old buildings down by the water, but that was a long time ago and without any connection to the present. Where the 3-storied apartment buildings now stood, there had been only forest before. You were beyond the grasp of the mistress of the past. There wasn't even a church. 9,000 inhabitants and no church. That tells you something about the modernity of the place, its rationality. It tells you something of how free they were from the ghosts of history and of terror. It explains, in part, how unprepared they were.